So welcome, thank you for coming to the second lecture of Building a Business this year. As mentioned last week, I'm just going to flag some events or programs that are coming up that you might be interested in. On the 15th of November, there is an information session about the Entrepreneurship project that the MBAs have to do. But we are looking for outside collaborators, so people from across the university or Oxford in general, to come in and share their ideas with the MBAs. So to give you more information on how that process works, come to the information session on the 15th of November. It's in the evening, so 5:30 in this building. And they'll run through kind of exactly what that involves. And so basically, if you're looking to expand your idea and get some business knowledge from some MBA students, it might be a good opportunity to kind of do that. Don't forget to come next week as well. So we have Robert Hockin joining us next week to share his ideas on how to sell your business, how to market your business. So it should be a really interesting one when you're getting towards that stage of wanting to kind of sell your product to people. But today I'm pleased to welcome Maria Nicolaou to the stage. So she'll be presenting on some tools that you can use to develop your idea further.
So entrepreneurship is a very wide term, and it can mean different things to different people. But what does entrepreneurship mean to you? Is it Facebook, Uber, Apple, Google? What all these companies have in common is they started from a single idea, a simple idea, a desire to connect, to improve, to change a product or deliver a better service. And they made it to successful companies. As B. Stone, the co-founder of Twitter, said, timing, perseverance, and 10 years of trying will eventually make you look like an overnight success. And that's how we usually all perceive these companies, like an overnight success. But we think that the founder had an initial idea, they put together a plan, they put together a team that executed the plan, and they became successful companies. But reality looks a little bit different. It has its ups and downs, successes and failures. It has great moments and difficult moments. The initial plan will never survive intact. Actually, the initial idea might never survive. So you might be thinking, if that's the case, what's left? What's left is the entrepreneur's passion, that desire to change something, to improve it, to make our world a better place. And I can see some doubt there. You might be thinking, I'm not so sure I'm an entrepreneur, though. But don't get caught up in the terminology. Entrepreneurs come in many different shapes. You can be the one that has that great idea that you'll move forward, or you can be the one that takes somebody else's idea and makes it work. It doesn't matter. In this journey, every single piece of the puzzle is important. So where do ideas come from? Well, they come from everywhere. You might come across a problem and you know how to solve it. You might have gone through a process and you can see clearly how to improve it. And you care enough to do that for the next person that is going to use it. You might see a gap between different services and you know you can bridge it. You might have hundreds of ideas by now like this. But what makes an idea a valuable business? Do all these ideas become successful businesses? Not really. So what does it take? So in order for an idea to become a business, it needs to create value for your customers. It needs to create value for your customers. It needs to meet a specific demand. It needs to solve a problem in such a way that our people are willing to pay for it. The demand needs to be big enough for you to have a viable business, so you can get a big market share and grow your business and make it profitable. You also have to have a great team that can execute. And actually, teams and execution is the most important thing of a successful business. More important than the idea itself. Now, you might be surprised of that, but many of my discussions with investors, I hear again and again that we invest in people, we invest in teams, not in ideas. And the reason for that is that the idea will change. It will improve, it will change, it will come completely different on the other side. But if you have a strong team that can execute and can adapt and is flexible, then you can move the idea forward. So that's very important. Also, it has to be timely positioned. And what does that mean? The market has to be ready for your idea. You might be creating a new market, so you may have to educate your customers before the first sales happen. But the market needs to be ready for you, because if it's not, your sales will never take off. A good example of that is Airbnb. A couple of decades ago, nobody will even thought of opening their house to a stranger. And now it's a successful business. Why? Because their launch was very timely. So they came after the financial crisis. People were looking for a little bit more cash to support what they were doing. So they were quite open on this new idea. And now the small startup with this little idea for people to get some extra cash became a very successful company that we all know. So a lot has been said about entrepreneurship. Is entrepreneurship something that can be taught? Are entrepreneurs born, or are they made? Well, nobody will turn you into an entrepreneur, and that's the truth. However, decades of experience from entrepreneurs and investors have led to the development of many frameworks and many tools that you can use to structure this journey, that you can use to plan in a more systematic way, that you can base your decisions on real data rather than trying to make a decision with 100 unknowns. So what takes you from the idea to the market is an approach, a method that you can use to check every step of the way what you're doing, whether you're in the right path, whether your idea is going to take you anywhere, or you need to change. So there are a lot of frameworks that are out there that you can use. They're content ones that will analyze the business opportunity in general, and they're process frameworks that will help you with your market research and the customer development. So today we're going to be talking about a few of them. There are many more, but we have a lot to cover, and it's only an hour today. So let's start. So position statement. This is an internal tool that you can use with your team. It's something that will help you focus your idea and get some clarity on what you're trying to do. It's not a PR tool, it's not a marketing tool, so it's something that you need to try and use simple language and be very specific on what you're trying to achieve. So this is Moore's position statement, but if you Google it, you'll find many different frames that do the same thing. It doesn't matter which one you choose, use any of them that you find useful, depending what you're doing. So this one works on the problem. What is the problem you're solving? What is the solution that you're offering? And your competitive advantage. Why you, why your product, and not somebody else's? So it's pretty simple. For your target customer who have this specific need, the name of the product or service that you're offering is in product category that has these key benefits. Unlike our competitors, our product is better, faster, easier to use. So let's see an example. For low-resource communities in remote areas, who are facing health risks due to low water quality. The Splash water filter is an easy-to-use manual filtering device that removes 99% of all known health risks. Unlike our competitors, such as XYZ, our product is inexpensive, easy to use, reusable, and environmental friendly. So this gives you, in a few lines, who they are, what they're doing, why their product is better. You'll be surprised how difficult it is for teams to put something like this together. But it's a great exercise, and I will highly recommend to do this with your team. It provides great clarity and focus for your idea. Now, the lean startup approach is something that many people have misunderstood, because they think that it's all about working on your idea and building a business without spending any money, which is not exactly the case. So the whole idea about the lean startup methodology is not spending too much money early on where you don't have a good grasp of your market potential. So the whole idea is to do some work ahead of time before you start pouring in the capital. So this comes in contrast with the old way and how people used to do these things. So when a founder in the old days had an idea, what they were doing, they will sit down, write a plan, address how big is the opportunity, what problem they're solving, what is the solution that they're offering, and a 5-year forecast for their finance. Now, they were doing all that without talking to a single customer or checking the market. Then the next step would be to pitch their idea to investors. If they were lucky, they would get funding. The next step would be to build a team, to put the team together to develop the product and launch a fully functional product, and then try to sell as much as they can. Only to get faced with the disappointment that nobody wanted to buy their products, or a very small number of people were interested in what they had developed. Now, the newer way of doing things is all about saving you the time, effort, and money by experimenting more rather than doing all that planning ahead of time. So it weighs more the customer feedback versus the intuition of the founder. So you have this loop here where you're building something very, very minimal, the simplest thing you can do, and then you're checking with your customers and you're getting feedback. You're learning from what they have to say, how they use it, what they need, what is it for, and then you go back and improve it. And as a startup, you'll go through the cycle many, many times before you have a fully functional product that you can launch in the market. But this way, you're involving your customers every step of the way. So you know that whatever you're building, they're going to be using it. And that doesn't mean that every time somebody is giving you some feedback, you have to completely change your idea. But you have to look for general trends, and you have to look for underlying clues that what you're building is in the right track, or you really need to rethink the whole idea. So founders now, instead of feeling that they're standing at the edge of the cliff when they have an idea and they have no clue how far they need to jump to make it to the other side, to make their business successful, or how deep this gap here it is, what they can do is build these stepping stones. So using all the methods and the frameworks that we're going to be talking about today, you can actually build these smaller milestones where you can check your decision making and base your decision on more elaborated data rather than your intuition. You may think you have a good grasp of the market. You may think that you know what your customers want, but you'll be surprised. And the process is different for every startup. It depends on the industry sector you are, the market you're choosing to go into, your product, your service. So there's no There's no ABC process or there is no right or wrong process. For every startup, this will be a unique path. And this is something you'll need to make as you go through. So in summary, the main principles of the lean approach is basically you need to check your hypothesis. When you're starting with your idea, you make an assumption. You think you know what the problem is, and you think you know what the solution could be. And of course, you have to start from somewhere. But the next step will be to gather early and frequent customer feedback so you know you're on the right track and you can pivot along the way before it's too late, before you spend too much time and too much effort and too much energy into this. Now, along with the lean startup is the minimum viable product, which was another term that was introduced with this approach. So what this is the simplest product that you can build to test the most critical hypothesis of your business. Now, many founders are very reluctant to use the minimum viable product with their ideas. And the reason for that is that they think they're compromising their quality standards and they're failing their customers. However, there's a smart way to build an MVP so you can get the message across. So the whole idea is not to build every single feature that you can possibly imagine with your product, but rather something basic that will still get the message across. So this is a really nice example that illustrates what a good MVP, a good MVP looks like. So for example, if your final product is a car, what does a car do? What is the basic function of a car? It's to take you from point A to point B. So if you build a wheel, nobody will figure out what you're trying to do. However, if you build a skateboard, that will get through the main message. Value proposition canvas. So the value proposition is your promise to the customer to deliver a specific service or a specific product. But in order to be able to put together a value proposition, you need to know what your customers want. So unless you understand exactly what their problem is, what they're trying to accomplish, your value proposition is going to be very generic. So the value proposition canvas helps you frame the problem and helps you understand the profile of your customers so you can serve them better. It is a plugin to the bigger business model canvas that I'll be introducing you in a bit, but it digs deeper to your value proposition and the customer segment so you get a better understanding of these two parts before you start analyzing and mapping out your whole business. So on the right-hand side, you have the customer segment, and on the left-hand side, you have your value proposition. And many people have described that as trying to fit a square peg to a round hole. But actually, there is a method to the madness, so it's not as difficult as it looks like. So starting from your customer problem, your job is to understand what your customers are trying to do. And this can be a specific task that they're trying to accomplish. It could be that they're trying to gain some social status, or it could be an emotional situation. They try to relax, or they're trying to feel good. The next step is to figure out what annoys them, what prevents them in accomplishing this job, what is the challenge that they are facing. And then what are the benefits that they want to have? And that can be functional utility, it could be social gains, it could be positive emotions. So moving to the value proposition side, this is all about what you're offering. How are you solving their problem, and what are the benefits that you're creating for them? And they're basic ones, but also nice to have ones. Now, alongside with this, and as you're trying to understand your customer profile and how you can better serve them, there's some ecosystem maps that you can develop by yourself. And that can support this process. Now, there are different types, there are bespoke types, and we're going to be talking about three main ones today: the day in the life of the customer, the influence ecosystem, and the customer purchase process. Depending on your idea and what exactly you're trying to accomplish, you can come up with your own ecosystem. Now, this is the life, a day in the life of a customer, and as you can see, it can be as simple as drawing down some things. This startup was trying to interfere with the process of buying a house. So you have a buyer that views the house, prepares all the different documentation that you need in order to make an offer, makes an offer to the house. The inspector comes in, checks the house, and then both parties are happy with everything, so the deal is done. So what they're offering, they can come in two different parts, helping either the buyer or the real estate agent. So that gives you just an idea of the step-by-step process of what your customer is trying to do and where you're coming in, where you're interrupting the process, and what is the value that you're adding. This is an influence ecosystem for a service process. So if you see doctors as a service provider, the people that are around here are all the stakeholders that are influencing their decisions. So starting from the experts and the specialists within the hospital, you have the patients, the pharmaceutical industry, insurance company, academia with the last discoveries that they support the doctors, public opinions. Another thing another stakeholder that is not here that you might think about is the government and how the regulations are affecting their services. And maybe you can think of more of them. If what you're putting together is a product for the market, then you have an influence ecosystem. You can influence your ecosystem with different stakeholders. So, for example, we have a handbag here. When you want to buy a handbag, you might be influenced by movies and movie stars that they're holding it, by fashionable magazines, retailers that can promote the product that you're putting in the market, advertising agents that they can work with you, your friends, or it could be as simple as, I need a bag, it has to be functional, it has to hold my things, and that's about it, it fits the purpose. But there are different ways where you can influence your customers' process of buying your product. So when you have a map and you know what are all the different stakeholders, that can help you position yourself a bit better in the market. Now, if you're selling to a company rather than a direct customer, we have an example here for IT software. So you need to know the decision-making process and who is involved in that process, so you can understand how you can influence that decision, how long that decision takes, so you can plan your business model accordingly, because that will affect other areas of your business. So for example, this company has a set of management priorities. They have already an IT plan. They have their experts where they're looking out for new options and new services. When they have the information they need, they have to put together a proposal and they have to sell their proposal internally. That goes through a shortlisting and a trial period that might go through an evaluation committee that chooses the best option. So when the committee has decided which option they're going with, there's a contract proposal draft, and then that goes to the CEO, who has the final saying on whether they're going through with the purchase or not. So this might take very long time and affect your cycles within the business. So when you're familiar with their processes, you can build your business plan a lot better. Moving to the business model canvas, this helps you map out your business as a whole. So it gives you all the different components that you need to be thinking about. This is how it looks like. It consists of 9 blocks that address different parts of your business. So the one in the middle is your value proposition, and it's what you're promising you're going to deliver to your customers. The right-hand side is the customer-facing, and the left-hand side is the backstage of your business. So what you need to be doing in order to deliver the value you promised to your customer. So let's go through these blocks in a bit more detail. So you start from the middle. You have your value proposition for your customer, and you move to your customer segment block. So in this one, you've done all the work with the value proposition canvas, but what you need to think about is that you need to be very specific with your customers. So pick different groups and be very specific rather than working with one that it's very generic. So think about demographics, think about the social life of your customers. For example, let's say we have a product. Our product is for people that are between 20 and 30 years old. They're single, they live in big cities, and they're very artistic. So putting all these characteristics together and creating a profile for your customer will help you define your value proposition specifically for them. Now, if you have different customer segments that you want to deal with, you put different value propositions together. So one value proposition for each customer segment. Then you need to think about the channels. How are your customers going to hear about your product? How are they going to buy it when they want to buy it? Is it going to be a physical shop? Do they need to go somewhere and buy it? Or is it going to be online? Is it going to be mobile? These are all things that you need to think about because they come with different functionalities. So if you need to use specific shops, you might need a distribution system. Are your customers direct customers or are they indirect customers? Do you deal with somebody in the middle before your product reaches your customers? This part is all about creating your customer base, growing your customer base, but also engaging your customers a bit more. And this is usually very challenging for small businesses. So you need to be thinking about how you can engage your customers more, how can you make sure that the next time they need a product or the next time they need a service similar to yours, they'll come back to you and they won't go for something else. So what creates that lock-in? What creates that loyalty between you and your customer? And the last part on this side is your revenue. How are you going to make money? How are you going to capture the value that you're offering to your customers? Is it a licensing model? Is it a subscription model? Is it a freemium, a premium? These are all things you need to start thinking about. What is your pricing mechanism? How is your business going to be profitable? How is it going to survive? So moving to the left-hand side, this part, as we said, are all the things you need to be doing in order to deliver that value proposition that you promised to your customers. So this part is about the key activities. What are the key activities that you need to perform in order to deliver that value? Do you need manufacturing? Do you need a distribution system? Is it a problem-solving business that you have? All these are different activities that you need to perform in order to deliver. Key resources is about what's indispensable in your business. So what other people will have to copy in order to compete with you. These are all the things that make your business. It could be your code, it could be a patent, It could be a large user base. It could even be a set of skills and experiences that are unique to your team. So what others need to copy in order to compete with you? These are always things that you'll never outsource. These are things that you keep close to your business. Everything else, you can work with partners. So you need to be very strategic. You don't have to do everything by yourself. If you need to physically send your product to shops, you need a distribution system. Don't build one by yourself from scratch. Partner with somebody that has already a distribution network that you can use. Leverage their strength. If you want to sell your product online, you don't have to build a platform from the beginning, unless, of course, this is the whole business that you're putting together. But you can use an existing platform. You can leverage the customer base of another business that has already been very successful in this area. So use them to sell your products. So think about it and be very strategic about how you use your partnerships to your advantage. And lastly, this is about costs. What costs your business money? What do you have to pay for? Is it physical space? Is it people? Is it materials? What is it that it's costing you money? And you always have to think very broadly, because there might be hidden variable costs that you don't really see right from the beginning. Now, the left-hand side of the canvas is all about innovation, and innovation, it has to do with your costs and the way you run your business in order to make it more effective. A few good examples on startups that they have used this side of innovation very effectively is Uber. They don't own a single taxi. Facebook, they don't produce any content. Alibaba, they don't have any inventory. And Airbnb, they don't own a single hotel. So things are changing. Think outside the box. Think of what else can you do? What is not important in your business? Now, of course, no need to say, but I'll mention it. Profitable businesses have to make more money than what they spend. So this side of the canvas needs to be a lot more successful, and it needs to create a lot more revenue than your costs. Now, how to use the canvas? So you need to print it out and stick it in the wall and gather your whole team together and do a brainstorm exercise. And this is a live document. This is a document that is not static like a business plan, and every time you come across your customers and you get feedback and you learn about your business a bit more and about what you're trying to do, it will change. So every time you get more information, every time you learn a bit more about what you're trying to do, you have to go back and change it. And this is why you don't write on the canvas. So when you do this exercise, you're going to need a lot of Post-it notes and big markers. So different color Post-it notes are used for different customer segments and different value propositions. And this will give you a good idea when you take a quick look of the different types of customers that you have. So you need to focus on quick communication, not perfect representation. What that means, we don't write an essay in the Post-it notes. That's why we use big markers. You need to write just a few words or draw something. One image is equal to 1,000 words. You also need to explore a lot of possibilities. So brainstorm, don't put any filter, don't think that your idea is stupid. No idea, there's no such a thing as a stupid idea. So brainstorm, put down every single possibility that you can't think about the use in your product, about your customers, about your value proposition. Then you can prioritize and start with the one that you think is the best option to go forward. You might find along the way as you're working on that option that is not going to work exactly as you thought it will be. So you may come back to all the other possibilities and say, maybe that one will be more useful. So don't throw away anything. This is something that you might be using in the future. Now, how do people use it usually? It's for exploration and ideation. They brainstorm all the different business models, all the different customer segments, all the different ways that you can use your product. It's basically for business model analysis, so you can develop different types of business models through the canvas. It's to identify the risks and innovation. So when you're thinking about your idea, your assumptions might not be visible. When you put everything on paper and you see the whole business, you might discover what could break your business. What is your biggest assumption that if it's not true, nothing else will matter? So that gives you a little bit of the big picture. It will help you understand the core dynamics. So all the different blocks are interrelated. So when you change one thing, something else will change. So it gives you an idea of how the different parts of your business are related to each other. And then it communicates with your team exactly what you're trying to do, so you're all on the same page. Now, as I said, changing something will change everything. So when you get more information, when you learn more about your product, your customer, your market, your costs, you need to go back and rethink about your whole business, because everything is affected when you change one part of your business. Now, there are many more different canvases that you can use. This is the lean canvas that focuses a bit more on the key metrics. How do you measure your success? But also on your competitive advantages. And it's just a different way of approaching your business. There's also a social business model canvas. So if you're working on a more social business, this one will be more appropriate. And I'm sure there are other different canvases that focus on more technical products or different services. You can use any of them that you think is better for your own idea and fits better with your business. It doesn't matter. They all serve the same purpose, and that is to give you, to help you to map out your business and give you a better idea of what you're trying to do. Now, these all are great tools, but they look at your business internally. So that's something you need to keep in mind. So all this that we talk about is about your business. And this is the limitation of these canvases. They don't take into consideration the external environment and how that affects your business. And of course, your business won't work in isolation. You're part of the whole environment. So you need to work on this on the side. So this deals a bit with your competitors. So one thing you need to think about, if you're entering with your product or service an existing market, how are you going to claim a market share from all the existing players? Something you need to be thinking about. If you're creating a new market, you need to be very careful. Are you sure you're not just paving the way and solving all the problems along the way from somebody else to just jump ahead and claim your market share? What is the entry barrier for other businesses to come along and join you on the ride? And of course, something that we all forget is the threat of substitutions. What could make your business obsolete? And these could be services or products that are intended for a completely different process or use, but can do the same job as your product. There are things that they're not directly competitor products or services with what we're building, but could really interrupt our business. So when you're looking for your competitors and digging into your competitive landscape, look a bit further. See what else is out there that could be competing with your products and services. And of course, depending on what your idea is, what sector your idea is in and what space, other things may affect your business, like changes in regulation, taxation, trade policies. So that's an extra level that you need to be thinking about if you are within a space that is affected by this. And of course, the overall state of the economy, and that affects everybody. And that's something you also need to take into consideration. So not necessarily that if there is a crisis, there's no way to build a business, because with a crisis comes opportunity. So be creative, have an open mind, but pay attention to what happens around you. And finally, the customer development. So this is not exactly a linear process, but I had to put it together somehow. So the customer development and the fact that you need to understand your customer happens every step of the way. So this part is last, but it works in parallel with all the other tools and frameworks that we just discussed. So before you build anything, you need to talk to customers. You need to get a sense of whether what you're thinking has legs, whether the problem that you think people are having is actually a problem, and whether they're willing to solve it. Because if, yes, there is a problem, but nobody is willing to do anything about it or pay for it, then you might have trouble convincing people to buy your product. So you need to have those early conversations, because that will save you time and energy. And how exactly you do that? Well, you talk to people. And that sounds simple enough, but it's very hard to talk to people without biasing them. But if you biasing them, then you don't get real data. You don't get useful data. And then you're going to be basing your decisions not in facts, but again in assumptions. So you need to try to avoid that. So how do you have a conversation without biasing people? You don't talk about your idea. And that sounds a little bit counterintuitive. So how am I going to get feedback on my idea if I'm not allowed to talk about my idea? Tricky. Well, the whole problem with talking about ideas and where conversations are going wrong is because even when we think we're being very systematic, very methodic about what we tell people about our idea, most of the times we're just fishing for compliments. We're just looking for that support. We're looking for that encouragement. And it's natural. It's our baby. It's our product. It's our passion. It's what we want to make work. I have this awesome idea for a business that I have been working for months. Do you like it? Hard for people to discourage you. Hard for people to be completely honest and say, well, I don't care because I don't have this problem. Or, I don't think it's going to work. I wouldn't buy it. Most of the people will say, yeah, go for it. But where does that leave you? Is that data that you can use? It feels good, but it's not something that you should be basing your decisions on. So how can you do that? You need to know what information you need to learn. Think about it in advance. Prepare. Pick customers that you have easy access to and have casual conversations. Don't overcomplicate things. Don't try to get in touch with people you don't even know. Just talk to each other. talk to the people you have next to you. Don't try to convince anybody that your idea is great. At this stage, all you need to be checking is whether your idea is going anywhere. So unless somebody is sitting across from you with a checkbook and they want to write you a check, there's no need to convince them that you're great. Talk about their lives. So here is the trick. You know what the problem is that you're trying to solve. Check how they're currently dealing with it, what they have been doing up to now. Are they trying to solve it? If yes, what are they using? Are they using something that is working? If it's not, why not? What is the problem with what they're using currently? How you can make it better? What does it need to have to be a solution for their problem? Listen as much as you can. Just let them talk. People love to talk. And again, be prepared. And I'll say this again. Think about what is your biggest assumption that will sink your business. So what is it that if it's not true, nothing else matters? What has to be confirmed for your next step to be a success? So look for the next step and try to make it to that next stepping stone rather than focusing on that goal over there of the $1 billion company. What can you do today to solve one of these issues? And then design your experiment to test these assumptions. Take one step at a time. So do what we call primary market research, but basically have some casual chats, but know what you need to be checking about. Be aware of the things you're trying to learn from your customers. So don't waste your time and their time. You can put together some surveys to send out and see how people are responding. And when you have a better understanding of what you're doing and what the problem is and what your customers want, you can go to the second level and put together some focus groups or do some what we call observational methods. Watch people as they're using similar products and see what is the challenge, what is the problem, what annoys them, why that is not a good solution for them. And finally, keep in mind that no idea survives its first encounter with a customer. Your idea will change, will evolve, will be better. You improve it, you'll make it happen. But keep your eyes open. Don't marry your idea. Just go with the flow. And of course, don't try to figure out whether your idea is good or bad. That's impossible. Even experts in the space have got that completely wrong. Things are changing so fast, and all it matters is the opinion of the customers. And I will leave you with that, which comes from a completely different space, but it's very relevant to startups. What you do have as a startup is your agility, is your ability to adapt and change direction. So use it to your advantage. Thank you.
Okay, so we have time for a couple of questions. So if you want to raise your hand for any questions for Maria. Yeah.
Thank you very much for an interesting talk. I have a question about the minimum viable product. So you talked about the market research and trying to understand your customers before you do your product. But how do you make the balance between testing and being iterative and have the agile style of your minimum viable product to improve it, and also protect yourself from the external threats and possible leaks to other competitors?
That's a good question. Most of the founders have this fear of revealing their idea because somebody else might take it and run with it. And of course, that's always a possibility. But actually, unless you check your idea, you'll never get anywhere. That's the first thing. The second is it takes a lot more than just the idea itself to manage to make a successful business. So if you have the knowledge, if you have the team with all the skills that you need, if you position yourself in the right way, then you shouldn't be afraid about somebody else just stealing your idea and run with it. So the best thing you can do as a founder is talk about your idea as much as you can and move it forward. Not when you're getting feedback initially. Yes.
Any other questions?
Natalie? Thank you, Katie.
You mentioned how important it was to have a reliable team, and I was wondering, obviously there's only so much you can test how reliable a team is going to be in those preliminary stages. Mm-hmm. You can tell obviously how enthusiastic people are, but that in a way is the last thing you can test. So what would your suggestions be in terms of really assuring that you have a reliable team?
So you're going to have a lecture on team building coming up. So I'll let them elaborate a bit more on that. What I would say is that the first component that your team needs to have is a diversity of skills. So what we usually do as people is we get attracted to people that are very similar to us, people that understand it, people that have similar experience, similar background to ours, because we feel comfortable with them. So what you need to keep in mind when you're building your team is be aware of your strengths, what can you do well, and be aware of your weaknesses. Where do you need to bring people in to deliver things that you yourself cannot? Most of us can do many different things, but when you build a company, you want the best people for the best job. So initially, yes, you're going to be doing a little bit of everything, and the whole team is going to be doing that, but you're choosing people in a way that have the right skills to deliver what you need them to deliver. At the same time, you need to keep in mind about the culture and the dynamic within the team. So it's a fine balance between finding people that you can work with, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with them, but at the same time, people that complement your skills.
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ για την ομιλία σας. So my question might be a little bit odd in the sense that I want to ask a little bit about values and how it relates to adaptability. So for example, in the early 2000s, the founders of Google were vowing that they would never partner up with advertising agencies, and now that's basically their business model. So how do you factor in values with the idea of adaptability and needing to change?
That's very personal to each founder themselves. So you adapt your business in a way that it's still aligned with your values, because if you divert too much, then you're working on something that you don't care about. And that's not a good recipe for a successful company. To give you an example, so we run a different program through the center, the VIEW program, which stands for Venture Idea Exploration Workshop. So one of the teams in the VIEW program, they started on an idea that they were very passionate about. And then they couldn't figure out how to make money with that idea. So everything was working perfectly. They had a plan. They knew what they wanted to do. People were engaging, but they couldn't figure out how it could be a profitable business. So in this program, we're pairing everybody with a mentor. So the mentor was pushing them in a direction that was focusing on a profitable business and how to make money. So initially, they tried to meet his recommendations, because that's how they could make money. And they got to a point where they realized that they were working on a business that they really didn't care about, and they didn't want to spend their time working on it. So they scratched all of that, they went back to the blackboard and starting from zero. So you will come across these milestones where you have to make a decision, and that could be that, yes, it could be a profitable business, but you just need to figure out another way to do it. Or this is a brilliant idea, but actually it that's all it is. It can't be a successful business. So it's a fine balance between keeping your values intact and working on something that you value and you're passionate about, and make profit. And there could be other ways that you can make profit, but you just have to figure it out and work a bit harder, or maybe they're not. It's unique to every company.
Okay, so I think we'll call it a night there, but there are, as usual, drinks out in the entrance hall, and Maria will be sticking around just for a little bit afterwards as well to answer any further questions. Thank you very much.